Get ready to dive into the revolutionary mind of John Locke, the English philosopher who redefined governance and laid the foundation for modern democracy. Locke's groundbreaking ideas on natural rights and the social contract proclaim that every person is inherently entitled to life, liberty, and property, rights that no government can violate. His philosophy transcends time, shaping constitutionalism, the rule of law, and human rights. Join us as we explore Locke's enduring impact on freedom and democracy, and experience how his words, "All men are naturally equal," continue to inspire generations. Let the journey of enlightenment begin.
John Locke was born on August 29, 1632, in the small English village of Rington, Somerset, into a modest Puritan family. His father, a lawyer and soldier, instilled in young John a strong sense of morality and justice, values that would deeply influence his later work. Locke's early life was shaped by the turmoil of the English Civil War, a period of profound political upheaval. These events would plant the seeds of Locke's later revolutionary ideas about governance, society, and individual rights. As a young man, Locke attended Westminster School in London and later studied at Christ Church, Oxford. Although he was trained in the traditional classical curriculum, Locke found much of it uninspiring. He was drawn not to the dusty books of the past but to the new scientific discoveries of his time. The works of Sir Francis Bacon and the scientific method sparked his imagination, and it was through this lens of empirical investigation that Locke began to explore questions of knowledge, human nature, and society. During his time at Oxford, Locke also developed a keen interest in medicine, and it was through this interest that he formed a lifelong friendship with the influential scientist Robert Boyle and the philosopher Thomas Sydenham. His medical training gave Locke a practical grounding, and he became involved in various experiments and investigations into human physiology, psychology, and learning. It was this background in science and observation that deeply influenced his later philosophical work, especially his views on the human mind and knowledge. In 1667, Locke took a significant step in his career when he became a physician and advisor to Lord Ashley, who later became the Earl of Shaftesbury. This relationship would shape Locke's political thought, as Lord Ashley was a staunch opponent of the absolute monarchy and played a central role in England's political struggles. Locke's time in the Shaftesbury household gave him a front-row seat to the political debates of the day, and he quickly began to develop his own theories about government and human rights. Locke's ideas would find their fullest expression in two of his most famous works, an essay concerning human understanding and two treatises of government, both published in 1689. In these works, Locke laid out the foundations of what would become modern liberalism, championing the ideas of individual liberty, equality, and the right to property. Locke believed that all human beings are born with certain natural rights, chief among them the right to life, liberty, and property. This belief was revolutionary at a time when monarchs claimed divine authority over their subjects, and it directly challenged the notion of absolute rule. Locke argued that government should exist only to protect these natural rights, and if a government failed in its duty, the people had the right to overthrow it. This idea was encapsulated in one of his most famous sayings: "Governments exist by the consent of the governed." To Locke, this was not just a theoretical ideal but a fundamental truth of human society. People came together to form governments in order to protect their rights, and when those governments failed, they were illegitimate. Locke's two treatises of government became the philosophical bedrock for future democratic societies. His ideas were later echoed in the American Declaration of Independence, where Thomas Jefferson famously declared the inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Indeed, Locke's influence on the founding fathers of the United States was profound, and his works became foundational texts for the development of Western democracy. In addition to his political writings, Locke's an essay concerning human understanding offered a groundbreaking new theory about how human beings acquire knowledge. Locke argued that the human mind is a tabula rasa, or blank slate, at birth. In his view, all knowledge is acquired through experience, through what we see, hear, touch, and observe. This was a radical departure from the prevailing thought of the time, which suggested that certain ideas were innate or divinely implanted in human minds. Locke's famous assertion that no man's knowledge here can go beyond his experience shifted the way people understood human cognition and learning. He believed that by understanding how humans gather knowledge, societies could improve education, cultivate reason, and encourage individual growth. Locke's emphasis on experience and learning would become central to the Enlightenment movement, influencing philosophers like Voltaire and Rousseau, and sparking new debates about the nature of human understanding and progress. Although Locke's political ideas were revolutionary, he was not an advocate for violence. He believed that rational discourse and laws should govern human affairs. His famous line, "Where there is no law, there is no freedom," reflected his belief in a legal structure that protects individuals' freedoms without oppressing them. For Locke, the purpose of government was not to suppress its citizens but to enable them to flourish in a structured and fair society. This delicate balance between freedom and order would later inspire the framers of constitutions around the world, from the United States to France and beyond. Locke's influence was not confined to politics and philosophy. His ideas about education were equally revolutionary. In his Some Thoughts Concerning Education, Locke argued that children were not naturally predisposed to any particular form of knowledge or behavior. Instead, they should be nurtured through experience, curiosity, and rational thought. Locke believed in the power of education to shape a person's character and intellect, and his ideas would later inspire reformers in both England and America. As Locke aged, he witnessed some of his ideas take root in society, while others remained radical in their implications. He continued to write and correspond with leading thinkers of his day, remaining active in intellectual circles until his death in 1704. Despite living in a time of political and religious unrest, Locke's vision for a society based on reason, individual rights, and lawful governance would eventually triumph, leaving a lasting legacy on the world. Today, John Locke is remembered as one of the most influential philosophers in history. His thoughts on liberty, equality, governance, and knowledge have shaped the modern world in profound ways. His commitment to reason, his faith in human potential, and his belief in the sanctity of individual rights continue to inspire those who fight for justice and freedom. Locke's words, "The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom," remain as relevant today as they were in the 17th century.